Hello, it's Sonia from The Pretty Stitch and welcome to my channel. Today for this project we are using a J-hook or a 6mm, and this project goes with the scarf in the similar stitch, and I am using worsted weight yarn, and this it's actually like a peachy pink, and so I've got my trusty gray background because I normally use a white background, but I want you to be able to see what I'm doing, so I figured to contrast the gray background to the rescue. Alright, it's actually an old dish mat that, you know, like a drying mat. When I used to not have a dishwasher, now I do, so it's great for this. Alright, so back to crocheting. We've got our slip knot on here. Now this hat is made a little bit differently. Usually hats are made entirely in the round. This hat is made in rows and rounds. So we're just mixing it up a little bit. So to start off, you are going to work a chain of 29. So I'm going to go ahead and chain 29. So I've worked 29 chains right here, so we're ready to get started. And again, I'm using a J-hook or a 6mm and my worsted weight yarn. This project is a little bit of a yarn eater, so because there's a lot of yarn over, so it does use up a lot of yarn. So just keep that in mind. But it's a really pretty stitch, I think, and this would be a really nice warm hat if you live in a cold climate or you get really cold winters. So to start row 1, we're going to work in the back bump of the chain. So you're going to work on this side of the chain. See these row of bumps? And we're working in the third bump of our chain. And your skipped 2 will count as a stitch. So we're working a half double crochet in the third bump. So there's our half double crochet. And we're going to continue to half double crochet all the way across this chain. And you will have a total of 28 half double crochet. So continue working in your back bump. You're working your half double crochets. Okay, so we have finished row 1 of our hat, working our 28 half double crochets in the back bump of the chain, because you want this part of the chain to look like that. That's why we work in the back bump. Okay, so now we are ready for row 2. So we're going to chain 1, we're going to turn our work, and this is going to be the wrong side of the hat. So now we're going to work in the back loops here, and we're going to slip stitch all the way across. So you're going to work a total of 28 slip stitch. So we're slip stitching in the back loop right in that same stitch. Come on, baby. There we go. And you don't want to work your slip stitches too tight or too loose. Just have a nice even tension, working them all the way across. Okay, so I'm almost to the end of my row for row 2, so we have to remember to work on this skipped chain 2 here for our last stitch. So I'm just popping in a stitch there, and there we go. We have worked 28 slip stitches in the back loop for row 2 for our hat. So now we're going to chain 1, we're going to turn our work. So now we're going to slip stitch across again. This is the right side, so we're working in back loops again. So right there is where we want to work. So pop our hook in there and slip stitch, and then we're going to continue to slip stitch across. I feel like my light is producing a glare. I'm not sure. We've got to figure out this lighting situation, so I apologize for that. So I'm going to finish up this row here, working again 28 slip stitches. Alright, so I've just finished up row 3 here, so working a row of slip stitch. So we're going to do one more row of slip stitch here. So we're going to chain 1, we're going to turn our work. So we're working in the back loops right in that same stitch. And continue to slip stitch across. And this is row 4. So what we're doing here is we're starting off with the band of the hat. We're making a ribbing. And we're making the body of the hat all at the same time, and we're doing it in rows. We will be working in rounds a little bit too, but that's closer to the end. So right now we're working in rows. So if you think of the ribbing in a sequence of 4, you're going to have 1 row of half double crochet and then 3 rows of slip stitch, and the ribbing will be worked entirely in the back loops, where once we get into the body of the hat it will not be worked in the back loops, but just when you get to the ribbing. So I'm going to finish up row 4 here, slip stitching across. So I'm almost to the end of row 4. So what you need to watch is sometimes the stitches can get a little crunched up there at the end, so we actually have 2 left. Sometimes though you might miss that last one, so you just want to be careful and make sure you count. But that one is there, and there it is. So we've got our 28 slip stitches. Okay, so we have finished 4 rows here. So we're on a wrong side row. We've just finished row 4, so now we're ready for row 5. We're going to start getting into the bulk of the pattern here, so we're going to chain 1. We are going to turn. So at this top of the stitch here, or top of the, this is going to be the top of the hat, this is going to be the bottom. So down here is going to be the ribbing, and then up here is going to be the body of the hat. So you will slip stitch right in this first stitch here, in the back loop. So right in that same stitch, back loop, slip stitch. Next stitch, back loops again. We are going to work a single crochet, and then the next stitch here, again we're working in the back loops. You're yarning over and you're going to pull up a stitch. So you have 3, we're going to yarn over again, go right back in there. Now we have 5. Yarn over, pull through all 5 of those loops. Now we're going to chain 1. We've created a little eye. We're going to call that an eye, that little space in there. So now we're yarning over. We're going right back in this stitch, pulling up a loop, yarning over again, right back in that stitch, pulling up a loop. So now we have 5. So this is now going to be the main stitch. This is like half of the stitch. I'm not sure what this stitch is called, so it's like a giant puffy star, so we'll call it a puffy star. So this is like half of the puffy star. And now we're going to work the full puffy star. So we've got 5 loops on the hook. We're going to yarn over. We will skip this next stitch. You're going to insert your hook in the back loop in the next. Pull up your loop. So we have 7. Yarn over. Go right back in there. Now we have 9. So you can see the first half you have 5. Second half you have 4, total of 9. Yarn over, pull through all 9 of those loops. We're going to finish this guy off and chain 1. We've created another eye. The eyes will become important. So now we're going to go right back in that stitch, pull up our loop, yarn over. So every time you insert your hook when we're working the puffy star stitches, you're going to yarn over first. So we've got 5 loops. Yarn over, skip the next one, insert our hook in the next. And go right back in. Now we have our 9 loops. And pull through all 9. Sometimes it goes through real easily, and then other times it doesn't. Alright, so we're going to do that again. So once you get going on the hat, it'll start to make a little bit more sense, and it's probably a little odd working the hat in rows, but hopefully, you know, you'll see the method to my madness. So I'm just continuing working my stitch, finishing up with my eye. So we're going right back in that guy. Now we skip. Insert in the next, working in our back loop. And if you're not sure of the back loop, because when you look at it like this, you might think that that's the back loop, you need to have the stitch turned towards you so you're looking like on top of it. Then you can know that this guy's the back loop and then the other one is the front loop. So that can be the tricky thing with slip stitch, knowing where to work. But if you look at the top, so you can see, because that's why I'm turning it like this, so I can see the top. Some stitches, you know, you can have it like this and you know exactly where to work, but slip stitch is a little bit different. So we're skipping that guy. Like I said, sometimes it slides through really easily and then other times, no, doesn't, it's no. Alright, so now we have a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 stitches left. So what we're going to do now is when you have 7 stitches left, you're going to work a half double crochet in the last 7 stitches. So there's 1, and again in back loops, and this is the ribbing part down here. So now we're at our last stitch. You don't want to forget that one. And now we've completed, this is row 5. So we have our 7 half double crochet, and then these stitches you can kind of see. Here's our little one that we did here, and then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 of the puffy star stitches. Rolls right off the tongue, doesn't it? Alright, so now we're ready for row 6, which is a wrong side row. So all the odd rows are going to be right side, even rows are wrong side. So we're going to chain 1, we're going to turn. So we are going to work 7 slip stitch across. So in the back loop, so you're going to have your works, as you can see, I'm turning it like this, so I'm looking at the top of the stitch so I know exactly where to work. And 2 more left. 6, actually we're working 6, I'm sorry. We're going to work 6 slip stitch across for the ribbing. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And you'll understand why we won't be working in that one in a little bit. So now we're going to do some short rows. So we are going to chain 1, we're going to turn. So we've worked our 6, we're right back. And the reason why we're working these shorter rows is because this is a really wide stitch. And I tried it not doing it with the short rows, and this part was just so skinny, and then this part was so wide, and it wasn't working. So a couple prototypes later, and I've got it figured out. So we're back to working the right side. You're going to work 6 slip stitch again in back loops. Sometimes it takes a couple tries to get a pattern right. Sometimes right out of the gate, you know, everything just flows right into place, but that's not usual. Usually, you know, you're kind of, at least for me, fumbling along. I have a vision in my head and then trying to translate that into using the yarn and the hook. That's a different story. Alright, so we've completed row 7 here. Now we're back to row 8. This is a wrong side row. And again, working in back loops, working 6 slip stitch in our short row. Actually, this is going to be a long row. We're going to go back working in these guys again. So I've got 2 more slip stitches in the back loop. Stitch 5 and stitch 6. Alright, so now we are back. So in this space right here, you are going to yarn over, and we're going to work right in that space where my finger is poking through. Insert your hook, pull up a loop, yarn over again, pull up a loop. So we're making the half of the star stitch. So we have 5 loops, pull through all 5, and then create the eye by chaining 1. So now we're going to work in these eyes here. So we've yarned over, insert your hook in the next eye. So we have 3 loops, yarn over, right back in that same eye. So you have your 5 loops, yarn over again. Now we're inserting in the next eye, yarn over. So now we have 9 loops, pull through all 9. And once you get going in the pattern, it will hopefully start to make a little bit more sense. In the beginning, you're probably like, I have no idea what she's doing. but hopefully, you know, it'll start to come together. So we yarned over, we're going to go right back in that stitch. So hopefully you'll stick with it. It's fun. I think it is, and it looks really pretty. So now we've created our eye. So now we're going to go right back in that same stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, right back in 5, go in the next. Got our 9. So we'll go right back in that same one, 5. And it's the same as when we started it here. So the first half of the stitch you have 5 loops, second half you have 4 for a total of 9, and then you pull through. And we just keep on going across. So you can see why I mean it's a bit of a yarn eater, because you're using a little bit of a thicker hook, a larger hook, and lots of yarn overs here. But I think the stitch is really cool, so that's the sacrifice. We are almost done this row. A little fuzzy. Bothering me there, sorry. You're probably like, what the heck is that? I don't even know what it is. I think it's a fuzzy, literally a fuzzy. I don't know where it came from. So now we are heading to the end of this row. So we do have 2 more eyes. We're going to work in this one, and then this is our little eye that we first made here, and we are going to work in there. So yarn over. You don't want to forget about that one. We have our 5 loops, yarn over. So now we're going to go in this eye. Got our 9, and then chain 1 to finish up, create that eye. So now we are almost to the end here. So this stitch here, where that hole is, we're going to work a half double crochet, and now we are going to work in back loops again. This is a single crochet, that's a slip stitch. So in this guy, back loop, single crochet, and the next one, slip stitch. So it can get a little bit bunchy, but it's there. Alright, so we have completed that row. Now we're going to chain 1. We are going to turn. So when you count the rows, you're going to want to count down here, because you know we will be short because these are so much wider than these guys. So I'm going to call these ones here the even row or the odd row. So now we're back to the odd. So it's going to be a little weird not having a number here, but just think of when you're working the odd, it's the right side. When you're working the even, which we just did, is the even. Is the wrong side. It is the even. It was the even. All right, now we're on the odd row. So what we're going to do here is you are going to work a slip stitch in that first one. So we chained 1, we turned, slip stitch in the back loop in that first stitch, just like we did here. This next stitch is going to be single crochet in the back loop. So now we're going to get on our star stitches here. So this space right here, you can see it, it's pretty easy to spot. We're going to work half of this star stitch, puffy star, whatever, I don't know. We yarn over, insert your hook in that space, create the half of the stitch there. You've got your 5 loops, pull through, chain 1, you've created your eye. Now we're going to work in this next eye here, and you have 5 loops on there. You're going to go into the next one, keep pulling up loops till you have 4 for a total of 9, and pull through all 9 of those. And chain 1 to finish her off. So now we're going to go right back in that same stitch there. Got my 5. So every time you're working in the eyes, you always yarn over first. So we are almost to the end here of working our puffy stars here. So we're going to yarn over, insert our hook, keep going until we have our 5 loops. So this is our little half of one. There's our little eye in there. So we want to insert our hook in there to finish her off. Pull through all 9, chain 1, create that eye. So now we are working a half double crochet right in this stitch here. You can see it. And now we're going back to our ribbing and we're going to work our 6 half double crochet in back loop. So I'm going to turn this, so I'm looking at the top of the stitch there. So the ribbing is made up of six stitches. I feel like that's a tongue twister. 6 stitches. Okay, so we're gonna, as I said before, we're counting these rows. So we have 4. So your ribbing's a sequence of 4. You have half double crochet, 3 slip stitch, half double crochet, 3 slip stitch. So we actually have 9 rows here. So row 10, chain 1, turn your work. We're going to work 6 slip stitch in our back loops. So the ribbing's always going to be in the back loops. So 6, so chain 1, turn, and again all of the band rows are worked in the back loops, and that creates the ribbing effect there. So I am going to work my little short row here. So right in the same stitch, chain 1, turn, and if you can hear some type of music in the background that's not from the video, that would be my son. Because for obvious reasons, we're all home now, all the time. So his room is right outside where I film. And we all gotta, you know, learn to work together and live together all the time. So there are no quiet moments anymore. Alright, so we're gonna chain 1, and it's a teenage boy, so. So now we are on row 12 for the band, so we're gonna slip stitch across in the back loop, still working on the band here, and then we'll get back into the body of the hat. Okay, so now we are going to finish up this row. So we are going to work in this space here with our small puffy star stitch. So we're yarning over, inserting your hook in there, pulling up a loop, yarn over again, pull up a loop. So you've got 5 loops, and yarn over, pull through all 5 of those loops. Guess I should really come up with a name for this stitch, but I don't know, I'm really bad with stitch names. I prefer just reading how to do them. I guess that's just how I am. Alright, so we're going to work in the next, we're going to yarn over, we're going to work in this eye here. Insert your hook in the eye, pull up a loop, and we're going to go right back in there. So we've got our 5 loops. And this stitch, there's 2 parts, so we're yarning over, going into the next eye, and going in again. So now we have 9 loops all together. You can see the break, 5 and 4, and then you pull through all 9 of those loops. And then we work our eye, or chain 1. So now we're going to go right back in that same stitch to finish up this row here. That one went a little easier. So we are working on the end of this row, and this is a wrong side row. So again, as I said before, these rows here I'm calling wrong side or right side rows. So this is a wrong side row, or even or odd. So this is an even row. And as you can see, I need more yarn there. If you're wondering what those tails are for, and as I said before, I don't do knots. They are not, haha. They are not my friends. I don't trust them. So we are getting close, as I said before. Whoops. So this is that small or half of the stitch there, so you want to make sure you work in that one when you get close to the end of the row of this even row here. And now we are going to work in this stitch, working our half double crochet. And now we're back to our single crochet and slip stitch at the end. And this just creates some shaping. So as you're going, working the rows, the hat's going to create, or it's going to create that like shaped, rounded effect that you want for a hat, I guess. I'm probably not explaining myself very well. But once you get going, you'll see what I mean. So we're working a single crochet in the back loop there, and then you work a slip stitch in the back loop. So they get a little crunchy at the ends, but the stitches are there. So we're going to chain one. Now we're working an odd side row or right side. We're working back loop, slip stitch in this first stitch, and then single crochet, back loop in the next. So now we're at our space here. So yarn over and work half of our stitch there. Pull through those 5 and then work your chain 1 to create your little eye. Now we're working in the next eye. Do our 5 loops, and then we want to go in the next eye till we have our 9 loops. And this one's not going very smoothly, but you know what? So I'm going to continue down this row until I get close to the end, and then I'll meet you once we get to the end here. So we're almost done this right side or odd side row. So I'm going to finish her up, and we have to work in this half stitch there. So that could be easily forgotten or easily missed. Work my chain 1, and now I'm going to work my half double crochet right in there. And then working half double crochet, 6 half double crochet in the back loops. Okay, so we have completed that row. So now we have a total of 13 rows because we're counting these. So what you're going to want to do is now you're going to repeat. We're going to work the 2 slip stitch rows in the short row. So you're going to work 6 in the back loop here, 6 in the back loop there. Then you're going to work 6 again, 6 slip stitch or 6 slip stitch row. 6 stitches. Then you're going to go back and work, it'll be your wrong side. You work your puffy star stitch row till you get to the end here, and you'll work your half double crochet, then your single crochet in the back loop, your slip stitch in the back loop, then you get ready to go. The row we just completed, you're working your chaining 1, you're turning your slip stitch row in the back loop, single crochet in the back loop. Then in that space you work the half of the puffy star stitch, and then you work all the way down, and then you work your half double crochet, and then your half double crochet in the back loops, and then you just keep repeating those rows. So I'm going to be working a total, it's going to be a total of 84 rows, and that is counting down here, not counting up here. So I will meet you back. Okay, so I apologize, I said to work 84 rows, which we will be working 84, but what I wanted you to work was 80 rows. So I have worked 80 rows, and now I'm ready to start row 81, because again, we're counting here. So I am going to work my half double crochet in my band, my back loops, and we are going to get ready to turn this into a circle, and we're getting close to finishing the hat. Okay, so we have worked 81 rows, so let me just show you what we're dealing with here. So here you can see all these rows that I've worked. Okay, so I thought I'd zoom out a little bit for you so you can really see what's going on here. So we've worked all these rows, and you can see the top, how it kind of curves in, which we want with our single crochet and slip stitch there at the top. So what we're going to do now is we're going to get ready to join this together here, and then we'll just have to finish up the top there. So we've chained one, we've turned our work, we're working on the wrong side now, and what we're going to do is we're going to slip stitch, and we're going to slip stitch all the way across. So we started off with 28 stitches, and we want to slip stitch 28 across. So for the band here, you're going to work in the back loops, but for the rest of the stitches you can work in both loops, and I think there'll be 28, but I'm not completely sure. So we're gonna see. We might have to skip some stitches or add, but you want to have a total of 28 because you want to have the same amount that you started with here. So we started with 28 half double crochet, so you want to make sure you have 28 slip stitch. Alright, so I'm going to slip stitch in the back loops for 6. So now I am on this part of the row, so we have 6. So here is 7, 8, and you can kind of see on the top, if you turn it towards you, looks like stitches. So here is 9. So I have 21 so far, so let's see how this is going to go. So here's 22, 23, 24, 25, 26. So here we have 27, we need one more, but we've got 2 stitches left. So I'm just going to skip this single crochet stitch. It's not going to show up in the pattern. You're not even going to notice it. And now we have 28. See, when you turn it over on the other side, you can't even tell. So what we're going to do for our next row, we're going to chain 1, we're going to turn, and we will slip stitch in the back loop all the way across to the end here. So again, turn your stitches towards you because it's kind of hard to tell when you have it like this where to work. So I'm working on the top there. And I'm going to continue to slip stitch across in the back loop, and then I will show you how to attach. Now, then we'll be ready for the next row to attach to the other side. So this is row 83 if we're counting down here. Alright, so now we're ready to join these ends together. So this is the row we just finished. So I slip stitch down the back loop, and then this is the row that we started with. So this is row 1, and then this is our last row. So what you're going to want to do, you will have the right side facing or wrong sides touching. So this is wrong sides, and we are going to work in the front loop of this stitch, our half double crochet, and the back loop of our slip stitch that we just made. And then it's going to create, we're going to slip stitch across an almost invisible seam. So I will insert my hook, and here is the front loop here, and right in that same stitch, the back loop, yarn over, slip stitch through both of those, and front loop, back loop, and work my slip stitch and then just continue till you get to the last hat, or last hat. I'm not sure what that was all about. To the last stitch. I'm thinking hat and stitch and whatever. Hopefully this won't be your last hat. Hopefully you'll want to make more hats. Maybe not this particular pattern, but other patterns. Hopefully there's lots more hats in your future. Alright, so I'm going to continue slip stitching across. And when you get to the top of your hat, you will not cut your yarn yet, because now we're going to shrink up this hole here. So I am almost done. I put my hook, their last stitch in your half double crochet is the chain 2, so I have my hook in the chain 2 there. And now I am going to put it in the back loop of the last stitch on the other side and pull through, and now we will have connected our hat. So it looks more like a hat shape now. And now we are going to close up the top. So for the top, so I'm going to be working 44 stitches. So I'm going to chain 1, and I'm going to work slip stitch, single crochet all the way around until I have a total of 44 stitches. So I'm going to keep going. So I have slip stitch, single crochet. So this next stitch will be slip stitch, and my next one is a single crochet. So I'm going to continue working slip stitch, single crochet all the way around the top. Okay, so I've worked my 44 stitches of slip stitch, single crochet all the way around. So now what we're going to want to do is you will want to place a stitch marker in your last stitch, and we are working in rounds now, and we'll be working in continuous rounds, so there will be no joining with slip stitches. So I am going to mark my last stitch with a stitch marker because it can be easy to lose track of what your last stitch is, your first stitch is, so that's why we do that. So I have my pathetic red piece of yarn, but it's still serving a good purpose there. Okay, so now we are going to work on round 2 of getting this hole closed up. So we are going to be starting some decrease stitches. So we are going to be shrinking this hole down. Sorry, I bumped the camera there. And we're going to be working in the front loops. So this first stitch is a slip stitch. I'm working in the front loop, and we will be working a front loop. And I will be working in a sequence of 11. So there is stitch 1. Next stitch is a single crochet, stitch 2. Next is a slip stitch, so stitch 3. Next is a single crochet, stitch 4. Next is slip stitch, stitch 5. Next is single crochet, stitch 6. Slip stitch, stitch 7. Single crochet, stitch 8. Okay, so now we have 3 stitches left. So you're going to want to end up with, we're going to turn all 3 of these stitches into one stitch, our decrease or together stitch. You want to stay within the sequence. So if you're working a slip stitch and then your next one needs to be a single crochet, then these need to be a single crochet. If your last stitch is a slip stitch, or your last stitch is a single crochet, you need to turn this into a slip stitch, because then your next one after the 3 stitches will be a single crochet. So hopefully that makes sense. I don't know. I apologize if it doesn't. So we are at stitch 8, so 9, 10, 11. So I'm going to make all these into a giant slip stitch, and how I'm going to do that is I'm going to pull up a loop, or I'm just inserting my hook in the next loop. I'm not doing any yarn overs yet. I'm going to insert my hook into the next loop and insert my hook into the next loop. And to make the slip stitch, I'm going to pull through all 3 of these stitches are 4 of the stitches technically, so all 4 to make a slip stitch. Now if you needed to make a single crochet, then you would pull through the 3 and then yarn over again to create your slip stitch. or single crochet. Oh my gosh, I'm like mixing everything up. So, but we want this to be a slip stitch. So I'm going to pull through all of these. And now we are back to single crochet in the front loop. So this will be single crochet, stitch 1, slip stitch, stitch 2, single crochet, stitch 3, slip stitch, stitch 4, single crochet, stitch 5, slip stitch, stitch 7, single crochet, stitch 8, and now we need to do slip stitch, stitches 9, 10, and 11. Pull through all those guys. And now we're back to single crochet, so you get the idea, and you want to keep the alternating stitch of slip stitch, single crochet. So I'm going to keep going all the way around until I get to the end of this round in my decrease in my sequence of 11, and I'll meet you back. So I'm going to finish up this round 2. I have 3 stitches left, and they need to be a single crochet decreaser together. So this is stitch 9, 10, and 11, and yarn over all 3 of those guys, and now I finished off the stitch. I'm going to pop in my stitch marker for my last stitch, and at the end of that round I will have a total of 36 stitches. So now what we're going to do is I am going to decrease by 9, because I did 11, we skipped 10, now I'm going to do 9. So it's the same thing. So slip, decrease, this is stitch 2, 3, still working in the front loops, 4, 5, 6, and then 7, 8, and 9 I'm going to decrease. So I finished with a single crochet, so I need to do it by slip stitch, 7, 8, 9, front loop, and work my slip stitch. And now I am back to a single crochet for stitch 1, and I'm going to keep going, slip for 2, and I'm going to decrease again, and I'll meet you back. Okay, I've just finished that round. So after that round I have a total of 28 stitches. So I'm going to do one more round. Since I have 28, I'm going to do a sequence of 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5, 6, and 7. 5, 6, 7 needs to be a slip stitch. And then my next stitch will be stitch 1 is a single crochet, and again working in front loops. So I'm going to finish that up and then I'll meet you back. Okay, I have finished that round. I now have a total of 20 stitches. Now we are going to close this hole up. So I'm going to use another hook. This is my technique. If you've done any of my other hats, then you've seen this before. So I'm going to use an eye hook. You can use one up or one down or the same. If you need 3, you can use 3, but I think 2 will be just fine. So I have this hook or loop on my hook. You'd want it fairly snug on there, not too tight, but definitely not loose. And we're going to go in this stitch here, and I'm going to work in front loops and just pull up a loop. And I'm going to continue to pull up as many loops as I can fit on this hook. So I'm not even counting, I'm working in my front loops and just pulling up as many loops as I can fit. So I think that's about as good as we're going to get. So now I'm going to get my next hook and I'm going to insert it in the next stitch, which is right here in the front loop, and continue to pull up the rest of the loops. Oops. With my second hook. Whoops. So it might seem a little bit awkward, a little bit tight, but and if you need to use a third hook, then certainly feel free. So I'm going to finish pulling up my loops there. So there are all my loops on my hooks. So now we're going to draw through all of these loops. So think of it as a giant slip stitch. So it's a technique I borrowed from knitting just to have a neater closed hole. So you want to be careful when you're drawing through that you don't do it too fast. So I finished up that guy already. And I'm going to attach my loop onto this hook here. Oops. We splitter, not good. And you can use your hook to help you out too. I'm not even sure why I'm using my finger, but whatever. And then you want to make sure that loop is fairly snug. And then I'm going to go finish just carefully. You could do one at a time, or I'm doing like 2 or 3 at a time. You don't want to rush it and go too quickly, because then if you mess up, then you have to start over. So I have finished pulling through all of my loops. So after you've pulled through all of the loops, then you can snip your yarn. So we're going to cut that yarn, and then you just finish that off. Pull it fairly tight, and then you have a nice neat hole. What I like to do with this little tail is I will insert my hook and then pop it through that hole at the top and just grab that tail and pull it through. And then that really finishes that off nicely. So then what you'll want to do to finish up your hat is weave in any loose ends. If you need to block your hat gently, then certainly block it. I will probably add a little pom-pom maybe, and maybe I'll add some buttons here on the seam. I think that might be cute. And you can, personalize your hat however you wish. And I hope you enjoyed this project, and I thank you so much for watching.